There is a standard that you are lifting up. Why? You're being guided by the divine one. That's the reason I don't go everywhere. I don't hang with everybody. I realize that I am special. And so notice again, Psalm 78, verse number 52. Notice what the psalmist says. But he made his own people go forth like sheep, and he guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he guided them. Notice where he guided them at. In the wilderness like a flock. They was in the wilderness, but they had a divine guide. Ooh, see, sometimes you don't have to really worry about where you at as long as you know who you following. You can be in the toughest of toughest places, but if you're being guided by the divine one, you better whisper to somebody, tell them everything gonna be all right for you. Tell them it's good right now. Tell them better here and better coming. Notice he guided them in the wilderness like a flock. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, our subject this morning, being divinely guided through the wilderness. Tell somebody else, being divinely guided through the wilderness. It's important to understand that if an individual, a family, a church, an auxiliary, if they're going to be guided by God, you have to understand that you must willingly submit to his way. If God is going to truly guide you in the way that he so desires, it has to be because, notice again, a group of people or an individual is willingly submitting themselves to him. We always have to be reminded that God is not going to force us to do anything. Yes, he is the one that leads and guides into all truth according to John 16 and 13. But it is a difference between leading someone and dragging somebody. I want to say that again. It's a difference when it comes to leading a group versus dragging a group. Because if you know anything about God, again, God is not going to force himself upon us. He is not going to drag us. He is not going to force us to do what we are unwilling to do. And so you always have to keep that in mind when it comes to God being your guide, that I have to willingly submit to him. In other words, as a Christian, as a believer, we first of all recognize that we are not our own. We recognize that we have been bought with a price. And part of that price, a part of our commitment, is to do things God's way. We don't just move or do things just because it's popular. We don't move or just do things just because kinfolk are doing it. We don't move and just do things just because friends are doing it. We are being divinely guided by God. And those of us that know how God guides, we also understand that when God is guiding a person or a church or a group, there are things he will allow you to do, and then there are things that he will not permit you to do. Am I right about that? There are some of us that recognize that God will tell us what to do, but then being the awesome God that he is, he will also tell us what we don't need to do. And this is what get confusing with folk who only want God to guide them when they're in trouble. These type of folk only pray when something is wrong. But when you truly appreciate God for who he is, you allow him to lead when everything is wonderful. wonderful, and you allow him to lead when all hell is breaking loose, or you're going through a lot of turmoil or trouble. Am I right about that? But you always have to realize that God's people are peculiar. We are different than the world. We are not trying to be like the world. We are a separate group of people. We are a holy people unto God. And therefore, we can't just live any kind of way and feel like that's going to please him. No, I have to be peculiar about how I handle myself. I have to be careful about how I talk. I have to be careful how I think, and I have to be careful how I act. Why? I belong to God. I can't say I belong to God, but I allow anything to come out of my mouth. I can't say that I belong to God and I'm acting in a foolish way continually. No, I have to realize that when I belong to God, it says about us that we are special. I don't care what nobody else say. In the eyes of God, his people are special. And this is the reason he will not allow us to do some things that, if the truth be told, sometimes we desire to do things that are against God's will. I know I wasn't going to get many amens off of that, but you have to admit sometimes you would desire to do something. The only reason you don't do it is because you know that's not what he would have you to do. You have to understand, even as a business owner, God will not permit you to run your business the same way somebody else run their business. Even if your business is doing like medium and so forth, and you see somebody else doing the same thing you doing, and their business is increasing and booming, you can't just say, well, I'm going to do what they're doing. No, you have to consult God, because as a child of God, you also gave the business to God, and you want the business to run in such a way that it pleases God, that when folks see your business, they recognize it's something different about you. You're not willing to just sell out. You're not willing to just do anything for money. Oh God, I am preaching right. As a parent, you are peculiar how you raise your children. You will not allow them to just do anything. You will not allow them to just bring anything into your house. Why? There is a standard that you are lifting up. Why? You're being guided by the divine one. That's the reason I don't go everywhere. I don't hang with everybody. I realize that I am special. Woo! High five, 3, 4. If you believe it, and tell them I am special to God. Therefore, I have to allow him, notice this, to guide me. And in order for God to guide us, we have to be teachable. We have to have an open mind when it comes to learning. We have to have a teachable spirit to the point to where when God sends correction, or when he decides to do something that goes against what we are used to or accustomed to, we don't fight back. We don't buck the system, but we yield to him, because we recognize that even if the change is painful, he's such a good God that it's going to benefit me if I'll obey him. Sometimes God would have his people to sacrifice, but it is going to work out in your favor. I come to tell somebody this morning that's going through a little something. You better hold on, because God said is going to come to pass. His promises are going to come into fruition. You just got to hang in there and know that God is not a man that he should lie. You have to hang in there and keep giving him the praise, even if it go to from being bad to worse. You know your God. You know his track record. You know what he has done in time past. Who am I preaching to that you're going through something right now, but you're not allowing it to get you down? You are still giving, you are still praying, you are still being faithful, you are still being loyal. Why? Because you understand that the same way he blessed you the last time, he's going to bless you that way again. Am I right? Give him a praise if you believe that. Give God a praise if you believe, like your pastor, that the best is yet to come. I ain't saw my best day. The best is still yet ahead of me. That's the reason I got to press on. and also be willing to allow God to guide me. This is important, because no matter how big you think God is, no matter how great you think he is, I got news for you this morning. He's bigger than what you think. He's greater than what you think. Pastor, why did you say that? Because if our small minds could comprehend God in totality, he wouldn't be the God that he is. We cannot fully comprehend God. It's the reason you have to be careful when you question how he's leading you, when you question how he's instructing you, when you question his counsel. You're not fully understanding who God is. And if you can ever think that you have figured him out, you are sadly mistaken. Oh, can I just teach this right? Even when it came to Jesus, he would not even allow folk to try to put a method of operation on him. That's the reason he often did things in a different way, so nobody would be able to patent how he does things. That's the reason you have to know the same way he brought your neighbor out, he might bring you out that way. But then again, he may decide to do something in your life that hadn't been done in nobody in your family, that hadn't been done in nobody in the church, because that's just how God moves. He'll show up and do something your eyes have not seen, your ears have not heard, neither what has entered into the heart of man. Yeah, that's something to get excited about. There were blind folk that Jesus healed. He simply just spoke to them and they got a healing. There were some he laid his hands on and then they got a healing. But then there was a time he switched the whole thing up and spat on the ground, reached down and made a mud pie, slapped it on the man's eye and told him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. And he came back seeing. What was it about the pool? Wasn't nothing about the pool. It was about the man that sent him to the pool. Are y'all listening? No need in building a monument at the pool. Build a monument at his feet. Worship Jesus. Worship the real miracle worker. That's the reason we don't worship no statues. Am I right about that? That's the reason Christmas is bigger than the tree. It ain't about no tree. It ain't a Christmas tree. No how. We worship the Savior.